Welcome to the Como Factor podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Sonal Trivedi.
And I'm Christine Strobush. Do you struggle to accept, enact, or even embrace change? If so, you have come to the right podcast. True transformative change can feel overwhelming and often unsustainable. Using the Como Factor as your guide, you will discover that you can accomplish more than you ever thought possible.
If you've ever wanted to undergo a personal or business transformation, are looking for inspiration, or just want to hear some great stories from leaders that have undergone a true transformation, this is the podcast for you. And on today's episode, it's a topic that I've personally been wanting to share with our listeners for a while, and something that Christine and I are both very, very passionate about. All of us at some point in our lives have all asked or will ask ourselves a very important question. Why are we here? And where do we see ourselves in life? We all are here with a specific purpose, but what helps us move and direct our purpose is a vision. So many people start the new year making resolutions, but they're never really clear about what they want. And if you don't know where you want to go, New Year's resolutions don't work. There's abundant research over the last several decades that has shown us that on average, 75% of people that make New Year's resolutions fail within 6 weeks of making them. And an astonishing 85% within 3 months of making them.
Those are some pretty big figures there, Sonal.
Yeah, it really surprised me when we did the research for this podcast.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it could be depressing, but we've got some hope here.
We do, and often, making a simple list of a handful of things that we want to aspire to be, or simply change about ourselves, is a recipe for failure, even though we think we're doing, something good. And the reasons behind the failure are different for everyone. Sometimes it's because we don't prioritize those goals. It can be because we weren't specific enough in terms of what we wanted to achieve. It could be that, we've simply gotten lazy, or there's other priorities. I mean, there are a lot of reasons as to why we fail. That being said, most experts in motivation psychology believe that in order to make positive changes and progress in our lives, we need to shift our focus from making a short-term resolution to something that's more of a permanent focus, something that gives us clarity of what we want to become. And we've got to have a clear vision over our lives. So what that really does is, when you have a clear vision, it clarifies purpose for yourself. And it's so important to have vision and purpose because it actually controls and makes our decisions, which ultimately helps us to create our life as well as our lifestyle.
I love that, Sonal. Okay, so when we start talking about all this vision and purpose, I get goosebumps. So I want to build on what you just said, and I want to share with our listeners about the meaningful mindset that we have established for Como this year. So I think it's so simple. I personally think it's brilliant, if I do say so myself. So imagine this, just think in your mind, 2021, 2021. 2021 equals one, WON. We need to have a mindset that we have already won the year. This needs to be intentionally ingrained into our brains. So friends, close your eyes and imagine this for a moment. If you live out this year as if you have already won it, you can create something truly extraordinary. But the big question that you need to ask yourself is, what does winning look like for you?
And Christine, while that seems like a simple enough question, a lot of individuals and companies alike struggle to answer that. And oftentimes it's because the perception is that so much of what happens in our life is out of control. And maybe our life doesn't look the way that we want it to. I think another reason is many people feel like if it's not in your control, then whose control is it? Is it a superpower? Has it, been already written out in terms of what I'm supposed to achieve out of life or what I'm supposed to be? But in the end, we believe that everyone deserves to create a life that they love, and we are all put on this planet, with a purpose in mind. And again, everyone needs to be able to create that blueprint of what that vision for their life looks like.
Everyone deserves this. But for most, if not all people, let's face the fact, life is not going to hand you perfection on a silver platter. You have got to get clarity of vision and purpose, and then turn that into a concrete set of goals for yourself. As Donald Miller, and we're big Donald Miller fans here,
yes,
he so accurately says, fate is a terrible writer. So if you want to have that life of your dreams, you need to take ownership for your life. And we know from experience, when you set clear goals, you're going to increase your chances of success. So you got to ask yourself, how serious am I about setting goals? A goal, after all, is a dream with a plan and a deadline.
Indeed. And as I'm sitting here listening to you, Christine, I'm also reminded that a lot of the goals that we've set for ourselves and a lot of the vision really comes from our word of the year. And I'm just thinking about your word of the year, right? We talked about it briefly during our last episode, and I think it would be great if you could maybe share a little bit more with our listeners in terms of why you use your word of the year, freedom, as an anchor for setting your vision for the year.
Yeah, of course. Last year my word was best, and I feel like there were a number of steps that I took to really create my best life, and there's a lot of reasons why I chose freedom. And if you think about the word freedom, at least for me, I think it's incredibly multidimensional. So we could start with a very famous phrase in our Declaration of Independence. When we think about freedom, we think of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is our foundational God-given freedom. And I'll tell you, the older I get, the more passionate I am about living out these freedoms. I come from a long line of American patriots. Both of my grandfathers were in the Army. My dad's father was a colonel, and my mother's father was a drill sergeant. And if you know anything about the military, you'll know that those two are very different, and they were very different people. But both of these men fought in World War II, and my mother's father, my grandpa, he was 17 years old when he was at Pearl Harbor. He was literally on a boat going to shore when the ships were bombed by the Japanese. So if I think about this, if he hadn't survived, I wouldn't even be here. So I have, a lineage here that has fought for our freedom.
I did not know that about you. I certainly knew about your father, and I've seen his various accolades that he's received over the years, but that is so cool.
Yeah. It's pretty neat. My grandfather was a Pearl Harbor survivor and got a lot of recognition throughout the years for being a survivor, and even did go back to Pearl Harbor. I don't remember exactly the year, but it was possibly in the last 10 or 15 years. But it's pretty neat. And so, coming from this, my father was in both the Navy and the Air Force. I've got my brother and cousins were also, several cousins were also in the military. So, saying that we're a patriotic family is a bit of an understatement. There's a whole lineage there. And I'll say, I love our country, and I am proud to be an American. That song, Where At Least I Know I'm Free. And that resonates, that resonates with me. So there's a big patriotic element of freedom that as I get older becomes more and more important for me. Another dimension for me of freedom really developed when, Sonal, you and I were both laid off from our corporate jobs transformation jobs on May 7th of 2020, which was the National Day of Prayer. I had invested more than 20 years of myself into supporting the growth and transformation of two very large multi-billion-dollar corporations. And after getting laid off, I decided to embrace that freedom and take a really big leap of faith. And I did that with you, Sonal. We jumped off the cliff together and, we launched our business 25 days later. And there's a certain amount of freedom there that I had never experienced in my adult life. And I continue to transform every single day since then. I love the freedom of being my own boss. Now, with all of that comes a lot of responsibility and different kinds of challenges than working for someone else. But I will take the freedom of being my own boss every day, hands down. I love the freedom of finding creative and innovative ways to serve my customers with excellence, without, let's say, bureaucratic and administrative decision-making processes. I mean, Sonal, one of the things I learned really quick, don't you just love how we make decisions at Como?
I sure do. And I'm sitting here chuckling.
Like there's no committees, there's no higher ups. We just look at each other and, well, does this fit with our vision? Does it fit with our values? Does it make financial sense, or, is it for a good cause? And we look at each other and, well, what do you think? Well, what do you think? Okay, let's do it. Nope, we're not going to do it. It's a pretty simple decision-making process. And I love it.
I agree with you, Christine. And, every single time, right, when we look at each other's words, I think we find new meaning in it. And I certainly think, in our business at Como, I am reminded of how much I love freedom, the freedom that we've created for ourselves. I mean, for example, right, we were at a client site, was it yesterday or the day before? My gosh, the week just flies.
On Wednesday.
But yeah, on Wednesday. And there were some things that didn't go as we had planned, but we were immediately able to make some decisions, right? And we had the freedom. We didn't have to go through this big, ugly process, spend days, but in the end, we were able to make the right decision for our client. And it feels amazing to have that type of freedom as well.
Absolutely. Freedom feels wonderful. I love it. It's my word.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I would say, so that's another dimension. Another dimension of freedom is I am embracing my freedom of speech. And I'm speaking much more about the things that matter to me. I mean, I truly believe we should be able to share different views in this country without attacks and unhealthy criticism. I mean, and if you really look at it, and if we're really honest, guys, some of this stuff has gotten out of control. So this is my new frontier this year. I'm speaking up in a healthy way to challenge things when I believe something needs to change. And if I'm the only one speaking up, then so be it. I am courageous and I've got freedom and I'm just going to do it. I will say that this approach, this mindset also fits really well with this year's theme for International Women's Day of 2021. And that theme this year is called Choose to Challenge. So I am embracing my freedom and I will choose to challenge where I believe challenge is warranted. So again, another element of freedom. So in summary, I've never in my life been so passionate about freedom. And if you could imagine the word freedom, just thinking about that in uppercase, freedom. So it's the perfect anchor word for me this year.
So we've talked a lot about our anchor word and really how we use that to basically propel or create that purpose for our vision. And, having clarity of vision, at the end of the day, it's all about knowing what future state it is that you want and knowing how to get there. So if a vision of what you want to do or who you want to be is not clear, one thing that we would say is start with that. And you can do this in a very simple way by asking yourself a few questions like, what is the best version of myself? What excites me the most? Who or what do I aspire to be? And are there other people that I look up to as role models that have the mindset that I wish I would have or aspire to be? What do I enjoy doing or being the most? If I were to have any kind of freedom to create a life that I wanted, what would that look like? And the way that Christine and I have really kind of applied it is certainly, we start with our anchor word in terms of something that we're trying to strengthen for ourselves or, a goal or aspiration that we want to create. But at the end of the day, once you have that anchor word, it's really, really important to create a vision for yourself. And we do this not only personally, but also with Como. And at the end of the day, what that really does, it helps you to really understand where it is that you want to go. We've talked a lot, in the past about this idea of creating, vision boards for ourselves. And Christine and I have now had this ritual for a couple of years, and it's really, really cool. We spend some good quality time really talking about what it is that we want to do. And Christine talked a little bit about it, at the top of the hour. But start with that mindset. Like, if I were to achieve everything that I aspire to do this year within a given time period, what does success look like for me, for my company, for my family? And, what we did was create a vision board for Como. And on the top, we kind of put the timeline of the year 2021. We had both of our anchor words in there. And we also chose some creative images that inspired us. So for those of you that have listened to our very first podcast, you know that Como, the idea of Como was actually birthed while Christine and I were traveling in Italy, in Como, Italy. And so one day our aspiration is to have, a chateau or something like that. And so that's a goal that we aspire towards. Last year, when we had done our vision boards, we had put in there that we wanted to be published authors. And guess what, guys? We just launched our book, The F Place, and it's available on Amazon today.
Starting today, like literally before we recorded this podcast, we realized it was out there. So we're kind of giddy with joy.
Exactly. And, and the point here is that when we were writing out some of our goals, right, when we were penning out our vision and drawing it, onto this vision board, sometimes, we stop ourselves as human beings and say, oh my gosh, that's so bold and that's so audacious. And how am I going to get there given, where I am today? But the whole point of this is thinking in a way that's limitless. Nothing is too audacious or bold. Nothing is too big, create that vision as if there were no limitations for you whatsoever. And try to also be as specific as possible. So again, looking at our vision board for this year, our goal is to try to sell 100,000 copies of our book. And while, one might say, wow, like you just are brand new authors, and it really does work, you guys. And so, we've got a lot of different things on our vision board. Along with, the kind of copies that we want to sell. We also have, very targeted goals in terms of the kind of clients we want to work with. We want to ensure that every engagement that we take on, whether it's consulting or coaching, we want to make sure that we are, doing it with purpose and with meaning behind it. And we spent a lot of time, again, reflecting if there are no restrictions, what would that look like? And already, so much of that has come to fruition. And what that really does, it kind of casts almost a blueprint for ourselves in terms of how we're going to get there. And it's also a really, really great thing to, again, put it onto a vision board in a creative way where you can post it. Like I'm looking at ours right now, as we're recording this podcast, sitting here in my recording studio at home. And I know, Christine, you've also got it strategically placed for yourself. It's really, really important to have that visual that you can just look at and remind yourself in terms of where you want to go. And it's a great motivator. And then, the last thing that Christine and I really strive to do each and every day in all that we do is really live by example. And by that, what I mean is that we want to model the behaviors. Both of us are mothers. We are, friends. We're very involved in our communities. And we've always had leadership roles in our corporate jobs that we used to work in. And so we know we have a community where people are watching us all the time. And we want to make sure that in everything that we do, that we're living by example. And not only are we living by example, but paying it forward, because I think again, if I look back at just kind of my 20 plus years, and I know you feel the same way, Christine, there have been some amazing mentors along the way for us that have really kind of, stepped in and helped us in so many ways, whether it's sharing their own experiences or, some of the lessons that they learned early on. They have helped us to become, who we are today. And so we believe in paying it forward. And you also see that just in our immediate team with the folks that we surround ourselves with at Como. And so paying it forward is a really, really big thing. And you can imagine if we all helped, just one other person, we could truly change the world, and it would be a different place,
Absolutely.
Right?
Imagine what that would be like if everybody here listening did something to help one other person.
Exactly. So you see, the point of all of this is that you must have a vision. You've got to be able to see that end result and decide that it's important enough to take on the commitment and make the effort to become something different, to see a better version of yourself, to be able to visualize the possibilities of what could be. And, we're big into inspiration here at Como. And one quote that I came across recently, and it's by someone anonymous, it goes like this: make your vision so clear that your fears become irrelevant, and think about that for a moment. Oftentimes when we try to set vision and goals, we let fear get in the way. And if we just remove that, imagine the possibilities.
Imagine the possibilities indeed. I love that quote. I wish we could meet Mr. Anonymous or Mrs. Anonymous. um, so, friends, as we wrap up this episode, I want you to visualize 2021 and think of it as one, WON. You have already won the year. You've already won 2021. So think about what truly winning means to you. Imagine yourself on December 31st of this year, and you're looking backwards. How does it feel that you've achieved all of these things? What does your world look like now? How have you lived your purpose and made a difference in the world? Now, if you would like coaching and support with creating your vision for 2021 and making that vision a reality, the Como Group, we are here to help you. We offer personal and professional coaching services that could be just what you need to create the life that you love. Contact us now at connect@thecomofactor.com. We would be absolutely delighted to serve you.